Today I'm going to start on top of Lamed Beis, Lamed Aleph, 32a. It's 3 lines from the top. Cheres Hadriani. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. We're learning Shav the Beis Hamikdash immediately. So we're learning for Shleima, for my father, and for Naftali ben Menuchem Bela, and for Ariel Gabriel ben Rachel. Hi. Okay, so we learned in the Mishnah that there's certain things you can't have benefit from. And one of them was Cheres Hadriani, Hadrian earthenware. So Gemara asks, "My Hadriani, what is this Hadrian earthenware?" Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says the name of his teacher Shmuel. Cheres Hadrianus Caesar. It's the earthenware of the king of the Caesar Hadrian. And apparently, when he would go to battle, he would take this with him. What do they comment on that? Do they recognize? Does the Gemara recognize now that it's wine, that it's soaked in wine, or is it something else?
No, they mention about the Roman.
But what's the prohibition of it? They don't. Right now, it doesn't tell us what's going on. Kesser Rav Dimi Amar, when Rav Dimi came, he explained that Karka Basula Haisish Layavda Adam Me'elam. There was a land that was never worked, that was never tilled. The soil was never nothing ever grew there. So Rashi explained, so therefore it had its full strength. And they worked the soil, Manata, they planted, Ramile Lachamra, they put the wine from what they planted, the Gulfi Chivri, in white earthenware vessels. The white earthenware vessels were brand new, they were still white. They absorbed the wine fully. Then they broke up these shards, and they would carry it with them. Wherever they would go, they would drink the wine. This was like concentrated. And they put it in their survival kit. They put these pieces. They could have wine wherever they go. Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Shua ben Levi comments on this. He says, "Rishon shalanu k'shlish shalem." Our best wine is like the third time that they've soaked it. That's how strong this was. The Gemara asks a question. Interesting question. When the Gemara said, when the Mishnah said that these items are prohibited to have benefit from, what was the intention of the Mishnah? Was the intention that you can't have benefit, which means you can't use the wine? Or was the intention that you can't have any benefit from the shards? Let's say you want to raise up the bed a little bit from off the ground, and you have these shards. Can you use it to hold the bed frame, to lift up the mattress? What does it mean you can't have benefit from it? So, you want the wine there, but not really the wine. You want the shards that are holding the wine. Is that prohibited? The case of Reitze B'Kiyuma is normally if a non-Jew borrowed money and as a collateral, he says, "Don't worry, I have wine that I'm going to sell, and don't worry, I'll be able to pay you back because that wine has value." Now, meanwhile, you don't want that wine to go sour or to get lost, because you want to make sure that you get paid back. You're not getting paid back with the wine; you're getting paid back with. But you're right, B'Kiyuma. You want the wine to exist. So here, it's not really you need the wine that's absorbed, but you want the shards that have the wine to exist. So it's al yidei davar acher. It's like indirectly. Tashma.
What was the purpose? Why not carry the wine? So why would they transport it like this?
This was easy to put into a sack and carry. They would break it into pieces, and this was just like concentrated, like little pills if you wanted to add to their water and have wine. Yeah. Okay. Tashma, come and listen. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan, it's machlekes between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan, two great sages in Eretz Yisrael. Chad Asar v'Chad Shari. One says that it's prohibited, one says that it's permitted. Now, our Gemara says, v'hilchos ha'kamanda asar, that the halach is like the one that says that's prohibited. However, on the side of my Gemara, I have a note from Rabbi Shaya Berlin, Shaya Pick. He writes here that it's obviously the Rush did not have this girsa. So these words were added in at a later time, probably. Well, Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. So far, we have a machlekes. Hadardarin v'rukviyos. Dardarin are type of jugs, and rukviyos are flasks. Now, they're made out of leather. Shalev de kechavim, that they belong to an idolater. Yayin shal Yisrael kanaspem. If a Jew has his wine that's inside these flasks, you're not allowed to drink it, probably because it's absorbing the flavor from the prohibited bottles, the containers. But you are allowed to have benefit from it. Hayid Shimon ben Guda, Notice that Guda here is spelled with an aleph. Guda actually means a wall in Aramaic. But Shimon ben Guda testified in front of the son of Ram Gamliel, Al Ram Gamliel, Ram Gamliel actually drank from such a wine in Akav Lei, but they did not agree to that testimony. They said that maybe he made a mistake. He didn't really drink. These are also leather flasks of a non-Jew. Shimon ben Gamliel says, Mishum Rabbi Yeshua ben Kufusai, Asalas ben Stichim Lachamar. These flasks, you're not allowed to make them as a covering for a donkey. Okay. We have an answer. Because here, he's not even using it for wine, but he's just using it to cover the donkey, and it has wine absorbed in it, and it's prohibited because problem with having benefit doesn't just mean having benefit from the wine, it means having benefit from the item that contains the wine. Where it says, according to you, you shouldn't be allowed to buy barrels. Kankanim are earthenware, or maybe wood barrels of a non-Jew. You told me noidus, the leather ones, the leather flasks, you can't even make it as a cover for a donkey. But kankanim, you can. Amarava, so Rava says that it's actually the Bach adds in El Amarava. El Amarava means we're rejecting the previous answer. Previous answer said that you're not allowed to have benefit even indirectly. Rava says, no, that's not what's going on. Really, you are allowed to have benefit from this indirectly, but it's we're concerned, we're on 32. We're concerned that maybe your own flask is going to burst. In order to patch it up, you're going to cut off a piece of leather from the cloth, the leather that's covering the donkey, and then you're going to use it to patch up your own flask, and that patch is treif. It has the non-kosher wine. 1 second. He told me it's a machlekes. Machlekes Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan. If you're allowed to, use this to support your bed, which means that there's a machlekes if you're allowed to use al yidei davar acher, if you're allowed to have benefit from it indirectly. So one opinion says that it's usher. So if one opinion says it's usher, then why are we allowed to buy barrels from a non-Jew? It's a big difference. In the barrel, there's it has to do with the amount of absorption. In the barrel, there's not so much absorption in the barrel. In this type of in the Hadrian earthenware, so the wine is so absorbed into it. So that's why it's considered that it's still in its original form. The prohibition is there in its original form. We're talking about a machlekes, regarding if you're allowed to use the Hadrian pieces to support the bed. Well, someone said no. It says we can't have any benefit. Since why are we allowed to buy the ceramic, the clay pots, the earthenware? So he said that there's a big difference between how much absorption is in each one. This one, the Hadrian one, is so much wine that's absorbed. It's considered like it's in its original state. So, yeah. In passing, we mentioned that there was wine that there was wine barrels or flasks that Rabbi Gamliel had drank from in Akku. In other words, there was kosher wine inside a non-kosher flask, and Rabbi Gamliel drank from it, and they didn't agree to it. Gemara now says, no one accepted that Rabbi Gamliel drank from it. Ramini, we have a contradiction. It says, wine that comes in flasks of a non-Jew, you're not allowed to drink from it, but you are allowed to have benefit from it. Hayed Shimon ben Guda lefnei b'noisho Rabbi Gamliel. Shimon ben Guda testified in front of the son of Rabbi Gamliel. Now notice Guda here is spelled with an ayin. Al Rabbi Gamliel sheshas men ba'aku. That Rabbi Gamliel drank from it in Akku. And they agreed to it. Now on the side I have a comment. It's not b'haidulai that they agreed to it. It's v'haida. He agreed to it. Is that what you have in translation? Okay. What does it mean that they did not agree to it? Now what do you have now? Yeah, they did not agree. The Ka'amar Hasam, what does that said over there? Over there it meant that they didn't agree. Over here it says they did agree. It says over there it meant kol siyate. That means the whole group of the sages didn't agree to it. Abul Benai Maidilei, but his son did agree to it. So Haida Lai means he agreed to it, but they did not agree to it. In other words, we have two brises here. One is in singular, and it says he did agree, and one is in plural, and it says they did not agree. So how do they, he and they? The answer is because he did and they didn't. The son versus the rest of the sages. If you want, we could say a different pshat. Gudalachod v'gudalachod. Depends on what the person's name was. There were two Shimons over there. One was Shimon ben Guda, another Guda with the ayin. The other one was Shimon ben Guda with an aleph. And Shimon ben Guda they accepted, and Shimon ben Guda they didn't. Yeah. Iris Labuvin. They want to say one is Goda and one is Guda. Okay. Iris Labuvin, we said that the skin, that the heart was, there was a hole in the skin to remove the heart. That was a type of idolatrous practice where they would cut open the animal while it's alive and pull the heart out. And so you were able to tell on the skin afterwards that it had a hole in it. That this practice was done. Started in the Brisa. What is this skin, this hide that has the heart missing? There's a hole directly opposite the heart. And it's chiseled out. It's like cut out, just like a window. If you see like drops of blood on it, So usher, then it's usher. Why? Because then you know that when it was cut, that was while the animal was alive. See, they could always cut a hole in it because they wanted to make what's it called when you put under the cup, coaster. Maybe they cut it out to make a coaster, but that they would have done after the animal died, not while it was alive. If you see blood on it on that cut, that means they did it while the animal was alive. That was that religious service, idolatrous practice. Anal of Kuritan. But if you don't see that drop of blood, then it's mutter because it was cut afterwards, whatever they were trying to make from that leather. Amar Rav Huna, when do we say that it's permissible when there's no blood on it? That's only if it hasn't been tanned. Aval malch, once it's been tanned, malch means salted, because that was part of the tanning process. Then it's aser. Ema malchai haverate. Maybe the tanning took the blood off. You say, look, it has no blood on it. It's kosher. We can use it. Says no, they washed it. Okay. Shimon Gamliel says it depends on the way it was cut. If it was cut in a circle, then it's prohibited. But if it's cut in a with a drag, like in a slice, then that's that if it's cut in a circle, it's prohibited. If it's cut within a slice, then it's permissible. Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yosef says the name of Rav Yehuda, the name of Shmuel. We have 3 generations here. It's very logical that if they cut it in a circle, that's because they were taking out the heart. If they were cutting it the other way, it wasn't because of the heart. Amalei Abaya says, halacha mechlal de pligi. Abaya says to Rabbi Yosef, who's his teacher, he says, you're telling me that that's the halacha. Sounds like everyone disagrees, or someone disagrees, or else you wouldn't have to tell me that's the halacha. Now, what happened in the Mishnah was, we said the halacha that the iris levuvim, that these types of skins are prohibited to have benefit from because they were used for idolatry. Well, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says it depends. Now, is Reb Shimon ben Gamliel arguing, or is he just explaining that it depends? When you tell me that the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, it sounds like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is arguing that he says that it's permissible like this, but other people say it's not permissible like this. So Amalei, my nafkalach mina. Rabbi Yosef says, why are you asking me if they're arguing? What's the difference? Allah is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel anyway. So what do you care if they're arguing? Amalei, Gemara, Zimrusatei. You told me the halacha. Do you think it's just a little lullaby that I'm just supposed to sing? Halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and it's insignificant. It has to be significant. If no one argues, then why? It's not. I'm not just making this into a little song. Zamurta. Okay. If there was meat that was on its way in to a place of idolatry, you see like a delivery truck. Someone backs up to the church and he's taking out meat. Are you allowed to go buy that meat? Now, it's not kosher meat. You're not going to eat it. But you say, well, in a second, I want to buy a piece before you bring it in because I need to feed to my dog. I'm not feeding him kosher meat. It's too expensive. I'm going to feed him treifa meat. Not to feed treifa meat to the dog, sure. But the problem is, if it's idolatrous practice, if it's been slaughtered for idolatry, then you can't. So who says that it's permissible to buy this meat? Rabbi Barabba, it's a famous student of Rabbi Yochanan. He says, Rabbi Elazar, it's actually has to be like Rabbi Eliezer, you have to adjust it. It's not like Rabbi Eliezer. It's not like Rabbi Eliezer. I hope that's what they have in our school. They adjust it to Eliezer.
This meat is for the idol worshippers to eat. It wasn't for the idol.
We don't know anything. We don't know anything what it's for. It says this cannot fit with Rabbi Eliezer, because he says that every time, according to Rabbi Eliezer, every time a non-Jew slaughters an animal, it's always for an idol. Rabbi Eliezer's view of idolaters is that they don't do anything that's not for their idol. So you can never buy non-kosher meat from, you can buy non-kosher meat from a Jew, but you can never buy non-kosher meat from an idolater, because he slaughtered it for his idol. So whatever the case is, this can't be according to Rabbi Eliezer. Okay. Yeah. It's almost like obvious that it's corrected on the side by Rabbi Shai Pick again, Shai Berlin. Well, now it says but once it's already been in the house of idol worship, then we consider it already like an offering to the idol, and now you can't have any benefit. My time. What's the reason? It's impossible that it doesn't have some sort of offering, that it's not considered an offering to an idol. Mani, who holds this? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir, it's Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir, the Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir, Aimer, Minayin l'takruvas avedus chamshem, Tame Bayal. It's interesting. I thought the Gemara was going to tell me that anything that was in the house of idolatry had to be offered to the idol. The Gemara is telling me that no, if it's offered to an idol, then it's asa. In other words, the question, mani, is who holds that it's considered zivchei mesim? Who holds that it's considered an offering to the dead, like the offering to the dead? And who holds that that's going to be asa? That's Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira that says, how do we know that an offering to an idol is the tame ba'il, that it's considered like a corpse, and it gives off impurity even in a tent? They attach themselves to Baal Pa'ar. This is from Tilim, but it's referring to the Jewish people in the desert with the daughters of Moav, Midian, and they ate from the sacrifices to the dead. Just like the corpse contaminates, so too an offering to an idol contaminates in a tent. Okay, now the next case of the Mishnah was that people that were going to a idolatrous fair, a gathering of where they're going to have some sort of ceremony. People are on their way. They're also selling things there. It's a big fair. People that are on their way, you're not allowed to do business with them. Shmuel says, while he's going, you can't do business with them. Because if you're going to do business, when he gets to the idol, he's going to say, oh, thank you, idol, for all the good business that I got on my way here. The Zara, but on his way out, it's mutter. He's going to be, you're allowed to do business with them, because my dahava, whatever happened, and he's already left the idol, and that's it. You can. It's there. It's a festival. That's what it is. Yisrael, but if it's a Jew, that he's going to the festival, balicha mutter. On the way, you're not allowed to. I'm sorry. On the way, you are allowed to do business. Still mahaderbei v'layazal, because he's a Jewish person, so maybe he's going to have regret, and we assume that he's going to have regret, and he's not going to go. Why he's going now? Well, he has the Sahara, but before he gets there, don't worry, he's not going to end up. Not going to end up worshiping the idol. The Chazara, but on his way back, also then it's prohibited, which is the opposite. By an idolater on the way back, it was permitted, but by the Jew that went to worship the idol and now he's returning, even the Avakpei Mahadar Hadar Vazel, because once he becomes attached to it, they become even more religious than the Goyim. They become more attached to. That's why all the Jews in India, they become like the Buddhists, like the monks and everything, become more than the guy. Right?
They mentioned like the opposite, that if he's never done it, just because he's a Jew, even if he's saying that he's going to do it, he's presuming that he's not going to do it.
Right.
Like at the end, he'll change his mind.
Right. That's on the way there. On the way back, once he's done it, then we say that the opposite. We say that he's going to go back and he becomes more religious than everyone else.
He's going on a pilgrimage to see an idol?
Yeah.
What's the Jew going on a pilgrimage for?
the Zara.
They tricked him. They told him Mashiach was coming.
Okay. But Tanya taught in the Brisa, Yisrael el chatarpas, ben ba'alicha be'em chazar it's asr. Even on the way there, it's asr. Ravashi answers, Kitani be Yisrael mumar devadi yosel. That's talking about a Jewish person that's known to always go to this idol. So we think he's gonna follow through because he does that all the time. Rabbanan.
Three mean
He's gonna make it all the way to the idol. He's gonna listen to his Yetzirah. By the other one, we thought that he's gonna come back. Rabbanan was studying in Bryce. Non-Jew idolater that's going to a fair, whether it's on the way there, whether it's on the way back, you're allowed to buy things from him. But the Jew that's going to the fair, on the way there, it's mutter, it's asr. But on the way back, it's prohibited. What's the reason why by the Jew on his way, when he's returning, you can't buy things from him? Problem is that he probably sold an idol. He's going to the fair. What was he selling? Selling cloth. He was selling little statues, selling idols to the Jewish guy. So that's why you can't do business with him now, because when he's doing business with you, he's taking money that he earned from selling idols, and that money is prohibited. And now you're getting that money, you're getting benefit from it. And he sold an idol, and now you're getting that money from the idol, from the money that was made from the selling the idol. Ella, the Gemara explains, say that the non-Jew, what he was buying there, is it zavin means buy or zavin or sell? He sold. It's in Aramaic. It's very hard to know without vowels, and even with vowels, it's hard to really know. It means sold. It's all in English on the other side. Yeah. So the non-Jew, we think that he sold a garment. We think he sold wine, and that's why now he has money, but not that he sold an idol. Maybe the Jew also sold a garment, sold wine. What are you saying? The Jew sold a little statue. It says, if that Jew had wine or he had garments, he wouldn't go to the non-Jewish fair to sell them. He would sell them over here in our city. Why did he go to the fair? Because he was selling idols. Follow? So by the Jew, it's worse. Boyan Mutaran. Those that are coming, permissible. That means that they're returning, right? Those that are returning from the fair. That's only if they're not returning as groups. That's when it's permissible. But if they're coming as a group, asurim, it's prohibited to do this business with them because they're probably coming as a group back, and they're probably going to go back as a group. They became like a unit, and they're excited about this. Now we start an interesting topic. Flasks of a non-Jew in their barrels. This became very relevant when the shaila with the whiskey and sherry casks came out. You know, everyone knows the big machlekes. Yeah. There's people that drink whiskey, so the whiskey is aged in barrels. Sometimes the companies they use barrels that were previously used for wine. Sherry cask. So if it's bourbon or American whiskey, whatever, maybe that's the same thing. I don't know, but so then there's no shilas on that. The only shilas on that is, was it owned by a Jew? Oh no, it's not even problem of chametz, right? Because it's corn. Bourbon is corn, right?
They say on bourbon you have to watch out.
Oh yeah. Anyway, there's several shilas in the whiskey, but one of the shilas besides for chametz chevrolet of a pesach is that it could be also aged in a wine cask. If that's the case, does the wine does the container give a flavor to it? It would need to be a flavor that's improved. Well, they advertise that it does. Now, as the experts say that they taste both and they can't taste the difference. It's just a marketing thing, and it really doesn't do anything. And from the Gemara, it appears that it doesn't do anything either. We'll see from in the Gemara that it doesn't do anything. So there's room to be lenient, but the machmirim are still there's room to be strict as well. The experts say they can't taste the difference.
Usually, their alternative is that they use like rum barrels, and you could taste it. So rum is usually like a lot sweeter than whiskey. You could a lot more. It's easier to drink.
No, but if you would have the same whiskey that was aged in the same one, aged in this type of barrel or aged in that type of barrel, would you be able to taste the difference?
Oh, taste test, blind taste test. That's what I'm hearing. Shabbos.
Okay, so let's take a look. Flasks. Noidas are leather flasks. Grudim, when they're smooth, chadashim, or if they're new, mutarim. You're allowed to use them for your own wine, for your own things. They're new. No problem. Okay. This is when they're. Yeah. I don't know if you type a leather. I'm not sure. Wood, you don't type in. Earthenware, clay, you also don't type. You only type clay when it's glazed. Because we consider it glass. Okay. Yashanim, if they're older, that means they were used already in Musafafim, or if they have the tar on them, they would line it with a pitch. Then it's a surim. It's interesting that leather would be lined. Anyway, Ovid Kechavim, Rivavan, Ivdan, let's say there's a non-Jew that's pouring in the pitch. He's tanning it, turning it into to the flask, and he puts in the wine. He's but there's a Jew that's watching him do this. We don't have to be concerned that the wine that's being poured in is going to be yayin nesach. Where it says, my hobby, who cares that the Jew is watching him? He's pouring in the wine. Rav Papa says, no, you have to read it like this. And a Jew is pouring the wine, not a non-Jew. And then there's another Jew as a mashkiach. You don't have to worry about that. Where it says, if you have a Jew that's doing it, why do you need a mashkiach? Because the Jew is busy. The Jew is busy pouring wine. Now, I have to explain that the pouring of the wine here, while it's being tanned, is not pouring the wine to store the wine. He's pouring wine into the pitch as it's going in, because the wine makes the pitch not as harsh flavor when you're going to later on put wine into this flask. So the wine is part of the production. So the Jew is helping out by pouring in the wine. While he's doing that, the non-Jew may end up slipping some wine in as yayin nesach. So I need a mashkiach there as well. He said, I need a mashkiach to watch to make sure the non-Jew doesn't pour wine in while the Jew is pouring his wine to help this pitch. Rav Zvid has another teretz. He says, Loilam kadam mikara. Really, it's the way we said it originally. And that the non-Jew, I guess, is pouring in the wine. And we're not concerned. We're not concerned. because he's pouring the wine onto the pitch that's covering the barrel or it's covering the flask, that wine isn't anything, because that wine is like pouring water into the tit. It's just part of the process of doing it. It's not an edible ingredient. Amar Rav Papi says, Shema min Amar Rav Zvid. From Rav Zvid, we understand, we can learn that that if a non-Jew pours wine into a container that has salt in it of a Jew, it's going to be permissible because all of the wine gets absorbed into the salt. Maskefla Ravashi says, 1 second. How can you compare wine going into salt to wine going into pitch? Midami. That's not a good comparison. Hasam kasal ibad. Over there, when you're pouring the wine into the pitch, over there, the wine is getting lost. No one's going to drink that wine. No one's going to ever get the flavor from that wine. It's just like a glue. It's not something that's used to give a flavor, except for edible. But over here, when you pour the wine into the salt, it's giving the salt a little flavor. We're going to use that salt. It's going to be salt with a flavor. There was an Arab merchant that he grabbed flasks from Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef, and he used them for himself. He took the containers. Years ago, the containers were the expensive parts, right? And what you filled it with was that came in Oakland, but the containers where you had containers, that was before the Industrial Revolution. So, Rama Buchamra, the Arab merchant, used it for wine, and he gave it back. So Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef is not so happy about this. He just basically trafed it up and gave it back. Also, Shal Beit Midrash, he went to the Beis Medrash to see what can he do with these flasks. Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah tells him, Kacher Rabami. Rabami paskined about this once. He says, Allah Lamaisa, Mimalan Maim Shleishi Amarim. What you do is, you want a kosher leather flask. What you do is you fill it up with water for 3 days, 72 hours. Fill up water 3 days, and then it becomes kosher. Rava says, every 3 days you have to pour out the water and fill it up again with water, but a total of 72 hours. We understood that was only because the flasks belonged to a Jew and it was used temporarily by a non-Jew, and now we gave them back. Aval did who? But if you want to buy flasks from a non-Jew that really absorbed, they had it, it belonged to the non-Jew, then this is not a good heter. Ravin, Amr Shimon Lakish. Ravin always shows up at the end. And he brings in like something that's more, acceptable. And this, he says, in the name of Shimon Lakish, is Echad Shalana v'Echad Shalahem. It doesn't matter. You're always allowed to kasher with water, 72 hours. The explanation here is, where do you ever get koshering with water 72 hours? We talk about koshering for Pesach and koshering. It's because there was a problem of heat. When there's a problem of heat, you have to kosher with heat. Here, it's not a problem of heat. Here, it's a problem of that it was just stored there and absorbed because of the storage. So if there's storage that is just cold, that 72 hours of cold water works. Savar Ravacha Breda Rava Kameda Ravashi Lamema Ravacha Rava's son. He thinks in front of Ravashi that you can say Hanimili Noidus. That would only be flask, leather flask, but not with barrels. Ravashi says, it doesn't matter. The same as applies to barrels. Anything that only absorbed with cold, kashered with cold. People that kasher glass for Pesach, they fill up a bucket with water and they kasher the glass like that. We're talking about real glass, not Pyrex. The real glass that can never be used with hot. You remember they would tell you don't wash it with hot glass; it would shatter. The old glass, the real glass. Yeah, the old glass. If you put hot water, it would crack. It could only be used for cold. So, so there's no real shaila of it absorbing. Just unless maybe something was stuck in it for a long time, maybe it absorbed anyway. But so how would you kasha that? You would put it in for 3 days into to a negelwasser shissel, and then you would switch the water every 3 days. Okay. Tanur Abanan. It's the same thing with the knives. Remember, the knives, they say you stick it in the ground 10 times. Why stick it in the ground 10 times? Because we're not talking about that it absorbed through heat. We're talking about that it was used with fats and stuff. So you stick it in the ground, and that would clean it. That would clean. If you want to clean a knife today, you use steel wool. You get off all because it gets like stuck, the handle, the thing, and people don't clean the knives as well. They just rinse it. So okay. So we
to the dirt, it sounds like sandpaper, kind of like steel wool thing.
What happens is the poskim say, this is not halacha, but the poskim say that if there was a milchik knife, let's say they cut something, and then it cut something else. So it depends. Is it now milchik? Is the new thing that you cut milchik? Let's say you cut a watermelon. First, it's a milchik knife was used for cheese. Then you cut watermelon. So they say like this: if in the middle you cut a root vegetable, like a potato or a carrot, that's considered like a kasha. The knife and the watermelon is fine. You can serve it on your flesh. Because it's the hardness of it cleaned off the. That's what they say. The Yad Yehuda. Okay, Tanur Rabbanan. L'chatchila, you're supposed to have separate knives. Tanur Rabbanan. Can kanim shleiv the kechavim, barrels of a non-Jew. Chadashim if they're brand new. Now we're talking about barrels, right? If they're brand new, gerudim, if they don't have any tar on them, mutarim, you could use them. Yishanim if they're old, zufafim, and they have their pitch on them, then it's a surim. Now, what it means, it says nice and seicha, but it says if. It really means if. If the non-Jew put wine into it, then Yisrael nice and seicha mayim. Then the Jew can put into it water, like we said, 3 days, and you kasher it. If the non-Jew put wine in it, again, there's another option. The Jew can put into it fish brine, and that would kasher it immediately. You can imagine Mach's herring, schmaltz herring, in this is not going to have the flavor of wine anymore. That's like fish brine is like a really sharp, like a vinegary.
There's no problem that the wine would taste like fish.
No, you're not. You don't have. Oh, for the Jew, no, he's going to clean it afterwards. But he's kasher the utensil. The difference between the water or the fish brine is does it take 3 days or is it instant? There's no problem. Where's the question? The chatchila did the idea of it. When you said that you're allowed to use fish brine to take away the flavor of the wine, is that lechatchila or only after the fact? Well, Tashma, the Tanu Rab Zvid Barashia. There's Vid. Son of Barashia Torah, Lekech can kind of menayv kecham chadashim neisen sechayayin yishan neisen sechatir tir muris lechatchila. You have a clear brisa from Rab Zvid Bar Rav Aishia. Says that you're allowed to. Is that a brisa or a statement? I'm not sure. They say it's a brisa? Okay. Boy mine. Okay. Boy mine Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya Merabami. Yehuda Nasiya is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's grandson. And Rabami was one of the sages after Rabbi Yochanan. He was around by the time of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's grandson. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya asked Rabami the following question. Rabami was one of the Dayanim, as we had before, that he said in the name of Rabami. Halacha l'maisa. Remember, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, quoted Rabami. Well, now Rabbi Nasiya is asking Rabami. Let's say you had an earthenware vessel. You put it back into the kiln. It was treif. You put it back into the kiln. Would it be good? We one time had dishes. We got dishes somewhere. Had a very fancy flower, beautiful design on it, but it wasn't. We didn't know what it was used for. So we went to a place where they wanted to put it back into the kiln to kasher. They told us we can do it, but we don't think the design on it is going to remain. It's probably going to get ruined. So we didn't end up using it. You break them at chasanas. Supposed to break a plate. Okay. So what happens if you bring it back? If you put it back into the kiln? Amalei, so Rabami responded, Sir Sayrif, if you can use brine or like kolshkein, for sure you can use fire. And my story was used for hot. Here it's barrels, not used for hot. It's manami. I'm Rabbi Yechon, Rambam, Rabasi, I'm Rabbi Yechon. Kan kanam shal v'cham shechshin l'kiv shenesh kivin shenisra and sifasan mehen. Once the tar melts off it, mutarim. We're talking about that it melts off because it got so hot on the outside that everything in the inside just melts up. Amar Ravashi leitemad the nachan alafilu rafi mirfei afagavle nata. It doesn't even have to melt. Doesn't even have to melt to the bottom. Even if it just gets loose, that's already counted. Kinsa. Let's say you put twigs into the inside. Like the one that says that it's usher, because in the inside, if you put the fire right up to it, and then the plaster, the pitch falls off, that doesn't mean that the walls got hot itself. You put it right up to the plaster. If it was on the outside, the plaster on the inside came off. So then that means that it got hot through and through. Let's leave it over here. That was the Shaila. Beer, putting beer into wine. Okay, have a good day, everyone.